Trump-appointed Texas judge blocks Biden's LGBTQ plus healthcare protections. A Trump-appointed federal judge in Texas has ruled against the Biden administration's healthcare protections for LGBTQ plus people. President Biden has been applying the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Bostock versus Clayton County, which made anti-gay discrimination illegal in the workplace. They've been applying it to other such areas, such as education and healthcare. In Bostock, the Supreme Court found that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which bans workplace discrimination on the basis of sex, applies to LGBTQ plus people because it's impossible to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity without taking sex into account. That's logical. But U.S. District Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk has rejected that interpretation after 2 doctors sued. The doctors have been represented by former Trump advisor and living Sith Lord Stephen Miller from America First Legal Foundation. Kacsmaryk said that Section 1557 could have explicitly included sexual orientation and gender identity, but instead simply banned discrimination on the basis of sex, using language put forth in Title IX, which bans discrimination in education. LGBTQ plus healthcare protections have been in a tug of war for over a decade. Rules were released by the Obama administration providing protection. Then the Trump administration reversed them. Now the Biden administration tried to re-implement them through the interpretation of Bostock, though at the moment they now hang in the balance. And the good news is this is a district court judge who's apparently trying to work in cahoots to get this to the Supreme Court, hoping that the relatively new makeup will reverse that decision, one of the many that Clarence Thomas is chomping at the bit to reverse. Hopefully, an appeals court will say no, and the Supreme Court will deny it, but we'll see.
Well, I think the chances of Supreme Court reversing it is low due to the fact that Gorsuch is the one who wrote the majority opinion, and he is reliably conservative, but he is also quote unquote a strict textualist, which means that he only reads the text. So on the basis of sex, if he interpreted that previously at Title VII as including sexual orientation and gender identity, why not Title IX, which that's on the basis of sex exactly?
Right.
So
4 words you never want to see or speak together in the same sentence. Trump appointed Texas judge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm happy that we're seeing Bostock, this ruling in Clayton County back in Georgia, becoming the premise for now healthcare rights for LGBT. And we discussed this on the last one when we were talking about, us seeing this, and this will be a precipice that will move us forward in the LGBTQ plus fight for now healthcare.
I think it is a lot more consequential than expected due to the fact that just because it can apply to so many things, if it is on the basis of sex, that means that every other anti-discrimination law basically automatically includes us, even if it doesn't spell it out to include us.
Yeah, I can't believe, seeing this story, I can't believe that someone is taking it so literally, it's basically saying, we can potentially discriminate on gender identity and sexual orientation because it is not explicitly written. And I think that it brings up the conversation of the difference between sex and gender, but also that they are similar. I'll use myself as an example. As a transgender woman, my gender identity expression is female, but my sex is male. So if my sex wasn't male, I wouldn't even be part of the community. So there is an interaction. There's a difference, but people shouldn't take stuff so literally. You really have to fight for what's right. It's kind of crazy.
But you also work in the sector of the healthcare.
I do.
So how, from your perspective, how will this affect the community if it goes forward and is upheld?
I think here's what I'm going to say is that everything, where we are today, everything takes a long time to get better, and what we're talking about here on is raising awareness. I think that people just have to keep on raising awareness and fight for what's right. And regardless of what happens, I do think that we will, make it. It just might be a little bit of a rocky road, just depending upon how things go.
I think I'll be honest, we live in Broward County or South Florida in general, where we have a very diverse medical community. We have very gender and sexual orientation affirming healthcare providers, but this will disproportionately hurt people who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. or and those who live in areas where your only clinic is maybe a church-run facility that's try to impose their religious values on.
Yeah. One final point before we move on. You were talking about the Supreme Court. They have 6 conservatives now, so they could afford to lose Gorsuch on a rehearing, and if they have the other 5, they could theoretically but
Roberts won't go for it either. At this point, Roberts is firmly on the let's not rock the boat too much camp. So if one ruling says that sexual orientation and gender is part of sex, you cannot take it back in the other one and say that, in this title is not including sex. It makes no logical sense. So either Gorsuch reverse its own ruling, the previous ruling on Bostock, or he has to go with what he already wrote.
We live in hope.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.